Hi, hello everyone. It's so nice to see you again. As always, it is my great pleasure to speak in front of you once a year. One of the good things about this SBC and New Life is the fact that we have a lot of young people in our congregation. It is not normal to every church, you know. The fact is that congregation usually aged with its senior pastor. So when he is 40 years old, then congregation tend to be 30 and 40. And when pastor is 50 years old, then congregation tends to be 40 and 50. And when pastor is 60, then congregation tends to be 50 and 60. Many churches usually get older like this. And many of younger people moved away to find a younger and cooler church. However, both New Life and SBC seems to be more than blessed with many young people, although me and especially Pastor Eddie keep getting old. So today I picked a topic that I thought may speak to our younger member more specifically, and that is the concept of inferiority complex. There is probably nobody in the world that has never had inferiority complex. There is nobody. I'm confused. There is nobody in the world that never had inferiority complex at some point in their lives. According to studies, about 95% of Americans said they have inferiority complex. In Korea, the most students at Seoul University, which is known to be best university and hardest university to get into, say that they have inferiority complex. People in general don't see the 95 thing that they have, but instead focus on 5 things they don't have. In conclusion, it is clear that it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what have you done, doesn't matter what you have, we all have inferiority complex. It is simply disease that eats at our heart. I also have more than enough cases of inferiority complex. When I was young, I felt too short and not too smart, not smart enough. And if I think it again now, neither of these complexes cause bigger problem, since at least I knew why I felt not good enough. I knew the root. But the case that I have hardest time overcoming were those when I did not know the root. For no reason, I felt behind. For no reason, I felt unrecognized. For no reason, I just felt not good enough, and I didn't deserve to be loved. This feeling haunted and bothered me for a long time. Are there any of you here today that feel the same way? I'm sure there are many. So today, I want you to dive with me on why we feel that way and how we can overcome that disease. Now let's look at the symptom and negative effect of inferiority complex. When you Google the definition of inferiority complex, this is what it says: the chronic feeling of general inadequacy caused by actual or supposed inferiority in one's peer, sometimes marked by aggressive behavior and compensation. Note, it is chronic feeling, which means that somebody with the inferiority complex feels endlessly that he is useless and worthless. There are many negative effects caused by this feeling. One common symptom we see is defensiveness. These people don't do well with any kind of criticism. They get easily offended or busy with justifying their action. In the end, they become hard to approach and end up being weird, strange people. Another common thing we see in the people with inferiority complex is the belief that people are always watching and paying attention to them. And because of that, they are always wondering what people are saying about them. And because of that, they are often hungry for compliment or any good thing about them. So, whenever it is other people that are in the light and getting complimented, they cannot accept it. You know what they do? They try to find and pick any negative thing to say about them. It is jealousy that they are struggling with. There are a couple of people in the Bible who struggle with inferiority complex, but out of many of them, I think King Saul struggled the most. In 1 Samuel 9, Samuel told Saul that he has great expectation for him, but Saul replied in verse 21. Let's see. Saul answered, "But am I not Benjamite from the smallest tribe of Israel? And is it not my clan the least of all clans of tribe of Benjamin? Why do you say such a thing to me?" What he said may sound humble at first, but I think it is really just him showing the sign of his inferiority complex. And this will haunt Saul throughout his life. Let's see a couple of examples. One day, Philistines came to attack Israel, and when Israel all scattered in fear, and Saul became afraid. So Saul ended up giving burnt offering before Samuel came. He thought he had to do something before all people left him. However, it was considered a great sin for the king to give burnt offering. So when Samuel came and asked, "Why did you do that? Didn't you know that it is a sin?" And Saul replied in Samuel 13, 11, 12, "What have you done?" asked Samuel. Saul replied, "When I saw that man was scattering, and that you did not come at the set time, and that the Philistines were assembled at Michmash, I thought, now the Philistine is come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord's favor. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering." Do you know what he's doing? He's making excuses. He is being defensive. If in that moment Saul has really reflected on what he did and sincerely repented and asked for forgiveness, he may turn up better. But he is so busy making excuses that he is unable to realize his wrongdoing. That is the terror of defensiveness. Next scene is in chapter 15. When Saul made a mistake, when Samuel approached him and told him that God gave up on him and God would raise another person as a king. But even to that, surprisingly, Saul responded in 15:30 this. Saul replied, I have sinned, but please honor me before the elders of my people and before Israel. Come back with me so that I may worship the Lord your God. Do you see what he's saying? Although he was just told that God just rejected him, all he is care about is how people around him will think of him. Oh my goodness. And can you believe it? Again, if he truly reflected on his disobedience and repented to God, would God have rejected him as a king? Probably not. So basically, ruined his own life because he let his inferiority complex take over him. More than that, when you read the Bible, you will see that because of his complex, he was unable to handle his jealousy properly. And exact that inability to recognize others caused his relationship with David to end. Let's look at the chapter 18, 7, 8. As they danced, they sang, Saul has slain his 1,000, and David his tens of thousands. Saul was very angry, and refrained displeased him greatly. They have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands. What more he can get but this kingdom? You know what he is saying. It's unbelievable. The Saul is the king, and David is only the small boy. Just a small kid, at least 40 years younger than him. And why he thinks that way? There's no reason to think that way. Even David did something good, but he's not the person who compared to the Saul. But like this, the man who have inferiority complex is unable to see his own problem, and instead is quick to become defensive. He normally become hungry for compliment and cannot handle jealousy. This kind of man became obsessed with finding something or somebody that will ease his complex. That something or somebody could be his money or possessions, or his children and their achievements. Whatever it is, he will hold on to it, believing those things will solve his problem. But truly, do these things really help him overcome his sense of inferiority? No. It will only get worse. The more and more he tries to find the thing to compensate his complex, he will hurt himself more and more and end up destroying his heart. Now, let's think about what makes inferiority complex in us. There may be endless things in the list, but many researchers agree that one of those reasons are problem in parenting. When our children don't get enough compliment and recognition from their parents, when we don't display our love enough to them, and when we keep comparing our children to other children, that is when the inferiority complex begin to grow before they even know. How about you guys? If you grow up in typical Oriental family like Korean, Chinese, and Vietnamese, you probably remember being compared to other kids that your parents thought were better than you, right? For some reason, your mom's friend's son always valedictorian, or your dad's friend's daughter was always first chair in the orchestra. And your parents probably didn't forget to remind you about them. However, what is worse than being compared to those sons and daughters is being compared to your own siblings. Why can't you be like your brother? Look at your sister. Consistently Constantly hearing things like this unconsciously builds desperation and anger in our heart. When I was teenager, my mom always compared me to one of my cousins. Not only has she never missed being valedictorian in school, but she took the first place in English speech competition and second place in German speech competition. And with that, she was invited to study abroad one semester of her high school in Germany. She won state in piano and national in art painting, and etc., etc., etc. My mom told me one day that I, as a person, was less than the third between her toes. Yeah. Whoa. She might have even said a harsher thing than that. And even to this day, more than 40 years later, I still remember those words ever so clearly. Many, many years later, I was with my mom, and I told her what she said to me and how it made me feel. That night, she said she couldn't sleep. She couldn't sleep. And she said she felt so sorry, so guilty, and asked me for forgiveness. So, parents, if there is any here, let's make sure that we never compare our children to others. In Ephesians 6:4, it says, Father, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. When we compare our children, we make them mad. And those feelings will slowly build their inferiority complex. And those feelings will negatively affect the way they live in so many ways. When you need to teach and discipline, let's make sure we discipline them for their wrongs instead of comparing and leaving lasting hurt to our children's heart. If one of first cause of inferiority complex is such as our parenting is external, then the second one would be internal. And that is the failure to manage our anger and regret that comes from not having accomplished something. Whether it be the looks, study, finance, success. If there is a standard we want to reach but couldn't, and we couldn't just simply accept it, those anger and regret add to our inferiority complex. So, in that sense, there is only the thin line between inferiority and pride. And our pride is not, when our pride is not fulfilled, then that is when we feel inferior. One day, I read one thing online written by someone who said he was struggling with inferiority and how he didn't want to feel that way anymore. He wrote this: I'll be perfect. I will not lose to anybody, nor will I fall behind anyone. Even with the sun shining next to me, I will shine brighter. I will become perfect. Now he said that he wants to overcome his inferiority complex, but instead, in reality, he is just getting deeper into it. Can a person become perfect? No. It is only prideful to think that way. The more and more people try to become perfect, the more he will see his lack of capability, and the more he see his lack of capability, the more he will struggle with his inferiority. Simply put, one of the main causes of our inferiority is our prideful nature. We want to be better than somebody else. We want to be prettier than somebody else. We want to have more and do more than somebody else. And when that can be accomplished, it adds to our inferiority complex. Therefore, if we fail something, we need to learn to accept it and be satisfied with plan B. The Bible also teaches us to be content. In Philippians 4, 11 to 12, Paul said this, I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstance. I know what is it to be in need, and I know what is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. So, when life disappoints us, we need to learn to cope with those disappointments by coping with the Lord, our Jesus. Now, we understand what made us into weak people who struggle with inferiority complex, long parenting style, and our failure to cope with our disappointment. Okay, then now let's move to what we have to do, overcome it, and be healed. First, we must admit the fact that we struggle with inferiority complex, and we must not try to hide or avoid it, which is what we normally do when we face the problem. Hiding will only make the matter worse. For example, if someone has inferiority complex and is scared of speaking in front of people, he will try to avoid that chance at any cost, right? We have people in Korean side who will not get baptized because they are scared of standing in front of people and giving the testimony. So when I recommended him to get baptized, he said, no, please, Pastor. If I stood on the stage, I will fall down and faint. Likewise, someone who struggles with inferiority complex will also try to avoid any places that might bring their inferiority to light. They will avoid meeting certain people, and they will avoid any circumstances where they may have to be evaluated. They may want to serve in the ministry, but they will not join because they didn't want any responsibility or possibly mess up and be criticized. If you feel that way, you must acknowledge that it may be coming from your inferiority complex. That's why we read earlier 2 Timothy 1:7. For Spirit of God gave us does not make us timid, but give us power, love, and self-discipline. Therefore, it is important for us to feel accomplished and successful, even in the little thing in life. And then how we can do to do that? We must work hard in all aspects of life. U.S. Military Academy, West Point's motto is duty, honor, and courage. And duty is the first word. West Point gives students all kinds of different duties during their 4 years of school. The freshmen get boring duties, such as ringing the bell 5 minutes before the class starts, while seniors get something fancier and respectful. At first, they may all seem like lame obligations, but graduating seniors said that those minuscule but consistent duty all build them up, and they now have confidence that they can do whatever it is, big or small, that life throws at them. When we look back and reflect on our lives, and when we usually feel not confident, we can see that it was probably when we didn't give our best. Therefore, church, let's do our best, whatever we do, and wherever we are. If you are in, for example, if you are in the charge of word time at your house church, do your best and prepare well so that you will experience accomplishment. If one day you are lazy and don't prepare, and you end up struggling to deliver the material at house church, you will feel less inclined to continue doing it, and you might just quit. And that is how we lose our confidence. So, in order for us to overcome our inferiority, we must give our all in all aspect of our lives. Jesus also said, do our best even in small things. In Matthew 25:21, it said, his master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. So never say, oh, it doesn't matter. I don't really care. I'm just doing it because I have to. Stop saying that. And give your best so that you be the confident. The third thing that you can do to become free from our inferiority complex is to make sure that we don't channel it to be used more negatively than it already is. What I'm saying is that people always do something if they think it will help calm their inferiority. Some people keep buying expensive and luxurious things because they believe it will make them more valuable. Some people pursue recognition and love. Some people try to win at everything and beat everyone every time. You are allowing your inferiority to be negatively channeled out of your inner being. So you have to block those channels. If there are any of you who live extraordinarily lavish lives or are extremely competitive, think about whether or not you are negatively channeling your inferiority. When I was in junior high, I was always conscious of my height. So I always tried too harder to look taller than I was. If someone taller than me is standing next to me on the bus, I would discreetly standing on the tiptoe. When I need new shoes, I always try to buy one with the higher heels. This is good example of how I was channeling my inferiority complex, and there is no way that I could be free from it if I keep doing this. How about you? How are you channeling your inferiority complex? However it is, I hope you will recognize it and stop it. And lastly, the most important thing that you can do to live a life free from all this luggage is to truly experience God's love. Once we realize the depths of God's love for us and how He loves each one of us as if it were just me and Him in this universe, that is when we will be free from this bondage of inferiority. We must consistently realize and experience God's love. There are many different ways we can experience God's love for us, but I believe one of the ways we can really experience it is when we step up and serve as shepherd. When you love and serve your member and your VIP, you will realize the outpour of joy that comes from God, and therefore see the glimpse of His love toward us. Then, when we are loved and served by our member in return, we get to again experience God's love for us. Serving and loving is the key to experiencing His love for us. That is why Peter said in Peter chapter 4:8 said this: above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over multitude of sins. New Life, I hope that many of you will desire to become shepherds one day. And not just being the shepherd, but really serve your member with all your heart. Then you will see someday, you will see the God someday, somehow. I used to serve as a shepherd for 11 years before I became a senior pastor. And those years were happiest day of my life. During that time, my relationship with God and God get deeper and deeper. And I get to understand Him better, and I get to understand myself better. And as I mentioned earlier, I was a man who struggled from inferiority complex. But now I can dare to say I am free. And God will mend and heal you as He healed me. New Life, I pray that you will become free from all of Satan's lie of inferiority, and that your heart will be healed as you continue to grow in the love of our God, Jesus Christ. Amen.